The silence in the hospital room was a living thing. It pulsed with the hum of machines that were no longer needed, with the absence of a breath I'd learned to sink my own to. My father was gone. The cancer had finally won, and I was left holding its hollow victory. The call came an hour later. My brother, Matteo, his voice not soft with grief, but sharp with impatience. "Juana, finally! Listen, we need you at the winery. The investors are here. It's critical." I clutched the phone, the cold plastic a stark contrast to my father's still warm hand. "Matteo, Papa he's gone." A pause, then a sigh. "Dios mío. Okay. Look, come after. This meeting can't be rescheduled. Papa would have understood. The legacy, Juana, it's what he built." The legacy. The vines, the oak barrels, the label with our family name. It was all he had ever talked about. But in that moment, his legacy was the weight of his hand in mine, the memory of his last, rattling breath, not the price of a bottle of Malbec. The funeral was set for 3 days later. I planned it alone, my calls to my family going unanswered, diverted to voicemail filled with the clinking of glasses and the murmur of business deals in the background. My mother's only text read, "Order the simple casket. No need for a spectacle. He was a simple man." He was a giant, and they were reducing him to sawdust. The morning of the burial, the sky was a flat, unforgiving gray. The small church in the Mendoza Vineyard region stood alone against the sprawling Andes, a solitary sentinel. I stood at the entrance, my black dress feeling like a costume in a play with no audience. The pews were empty. Not a single relative. Not my mother, not Matteo, not my tias or tios who had eaten at our table every Sunday. The priest's words echoed in the vast, hollow space. I held myself rigid, my fingers gripping the polished oak of my father's casket until my knuckles turned white. Inside, a childish hope screamed, "Maybe they'll come. Maybe the caravans of cars will pull up, doors flying open, their faces etched with apologies." But the only sound was the dry wind scraping against the stained glass windows, a mournful whistle that seemed to mock my solitude. As they lowered his casket into the hard Argentine earth, my phone vibrated in my purse. Once, twice, a relentless, insistent buzzing. A final twist of the knife. I ignored it, my eyes fixed on the rectangular hole that was swallowing the only person who had ever truly seen me. The dirt hitting the lid was the loudest sound I had ever heard. When it was over, a few of the vineyard workers, their faces weathered and familiar, came to offer their condolences in hushed, respectful Spanish. They touched my arm gently, their calloused hands a testament to the legacy my family now deemed more important than the man himself. Then they left, and I was truly alone. I walked to my father's old truck, the world tilting on its axis. The silence was broken by the buzz of my phone again. I finally looked. 37 missed calls. A string of messages from Matteo. "Where are you? The deal is closing. This is irresponsible. Answer your phone. Juana, the lawyers are waiting. We need you to sign." Then one from my mother. "The reading of the will is at the estate office. Now. Don't be late." The words blurred. The sheer audacity was a physical blow. While I buried the heart of this family, they were in a boardroom, poised to carve up its body. A coldness seeped into my bones, a glacial calm that froze the hot tears of grief solid. Something inside me, something that had always sought their approval, shriveled and died in that moment. I didn't answer. I started the truck and drove not to the estate office, but to the small casa I shared with my father on the vineyard property. The house still smelled of him, of old leather, soil, and the faint, sweet trace of fermenting grapes. The doorbell rang that evening. It wasn't a chime, it was an assault.
I opened it to find my mother, impeccable in a tailored black suit better suited for a corporate takeover than her husband's funeral. Behind her stood Matteo, his phone still in his hand, his expression one of pure annoyance.
"Finally," he said, brushing past me. "We've been waiting for hours." My mother stepped in, her eyes scanning the living room, not with memory, but with appraisal. "Juana, we need to talk. The timing is unfortunate, but business doesn't stop for sentiment." "You missed your husband's funeral?" I said, my voice a low whisper, scraped raw from disuse. "You missed your father's burial." Matteo waved a dismissive hand. "He's gone, Juana. What matters now is the future, the brand. We closed the deal with the distributors. It's huge, but it requires capital, expansion." My mother sat on the edge of my father's favorite armchair, her back straight. "The will, Juana. Your father, he was not a practical man. He left controlling interest in the winery to you, 51%. It's unwise. You've never been involved in the business side. Matteo and I, along with the board, think it's best if you sign your shares over to a family trust. Matteo will manage it." The air left my lungs. Not just the request, but the casual, predatory way they presented it. They hadn't come to mourn. They'd come to loot. "You want me to sign over my inheritance?" I stated, the coldness within me spreading. The thing Papa left specifically to me. "It's for the best," my mother said smoothly. "You're emotional. You're not thinking clearly. This is too much for you. We're protecting you." Protecting me. The words were ash in my mouth. They were protecting their ambitions, their greed, their chance to sell our name to the highest bidder and dilute the rich, painstakingly crafted wine into a mass-produced commodity. I looked at them, my mother a statue of calculated elegance, and my brother a carbon copy of her ambition, and I saw not family, but opponents. Grief and betrayal fused into a single, unyielding resolve. I gave them a small, tired smile, the mask of the grieving, overwhelmed daughter they expected to see. I need time to process all of this. It's been a lot." Matteo's shoulders relaxed, my mother's lips curved into a thin, victorious line. They mistook my calm for surrender. "Of course, mija," she said, her tone dripping with false warmth. "Take the night. We'll have the papers drawn up and meet tomorrow." I watched them see out, watching their sleek car disappear down the dusty road toward the grand main house. The moment their taillights vanished, I moved. I went to my father's study. The scent of him was strongest here. I opened the old, battered safe behind his framed map of the vineyard. Inside, next to his first harvest medal, was a thick envelope. "Para mi Juana, mi corazón." The label read in his familiar scrawl, "When they come for it." Tears I hadn't been able to shed at the grave finally welled in my eyes. He knew. He always knew. Inside was his will, but also another document, a private, later edition witnessed separately by his most trusted foreman and the village priest. It was a letter, outlining his fears that the family would prioritize profit over passion, money over the soul of the wine. It explicitly stated that any attempt to force me to sell or sign over my shares would void any inheritance they received, and grant me sole discretion to buy them out at a fair price. He had given me the sword. I just had to learn how to wield it. The next morning, I didn't wait for them. I went to see Señor Almodovar, the family lawyer, a man whose eyes held a deep sadness when I told him of the empty church. I showed him the documents. "They are very determined, Juana. They will not give up easily." "I'm not asking them to give up," I said, my voice steady. "I'm going to make them surrender." The plan was quiet, precise. We filed the supplemental directive with the court. We had the foreman and the priest provide sworn affidavits. We built a fortress of law around my father's true wishes. Then I went to the vineyard workers. I spoke to them not as an owner, but as the daughter of the man who worked alongside them in the fields.
I told them of the plans to expand, to automate, to cut the old vines and replace them with higher-yielding, cheaper varieties. I saw the anger in their eyes. Their loyalty wasn't to the name on the label. It was to the man who put his soul into the soil, and by extension, to me. The storm broke at a family meeting called by Matteo. They all gathered in the estate office. My mother, Matteo, my aunts and uncles, all smelling of ambition and imported cologne. Matteo slid a stack of papers across the vast oak desk. "Sign, Juana. Let's not make this ugly." I didn't touch them. I looked at each of them in turn, my gaze cold. No. The word hung in the air, simple and absolute. My mother's composure cracked. "Don't be a stupid, selfish girl. This is bigger than you." "It is. It's about the soul of this place, and Papa left it to me." Matteo laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "And what will you do? Play farmer? You know nothing." "I know enough to know that selling our name to put Plonk in a box is a sin against everything he stood for. And I know the law." I nodded to Señor Almodovar, who entered the room. He calmly explained the supplemental directive. The color drained from my mother's face.